Namaste. Welcome back, beautiful souls. Today I am broadcasting publicly. This is the Tarot Avatara Major Nines episode. And this has been a series going on for some time, looking into examining this amazing deck by Gabi Angus-West, the images based on the story of Frida Kahlo and her husband Diego and their life. And this journey has been very poignant and wandering and healing. And through many weeks of study and reflection, I think this deck will become a powerful one for healing in working with clients who are really struggling in their healing of the sacral chakra. And this may come through in a very different way than Frida's story. This could come through relationships, trauma regarding this, anything to do with this particular chakra. This is potent. It's really potent, and an extension may reach into any of the healing aspects of water. And so if you've never seen this deck before, just know that it's a very powerful one. And there may be some very provoking images today. We're only going to look at the nines, so the Hermit, the Sun, and the Moon by 9 by reduction. And I may show some of the minor 9 cards again as well too, which were discussed in the previous episode. 9, as I was mentioning last time, the 9th Sephira on the Tree of Life is in direct alignment with the Sun. And this idea, this connection between moon and sun in the tarot is a potent one. And we are reminded again and again and again to continue to reflect and look for a balance and harmony between our moon and our sun, the light and the dark, our action and our inaction. And I find that this combination of cards, looking at them together, is very, very powerful. 9 as the 9th Sephira is the moon, and the sun, when we're talking about the Sephiras, is the 6th one at Tipheret. The path of the sun does lead to the Sephira of the moon, and the path of the Hermit does lead to the sun. The moon is sort of out there on its own, and it is one of those long paths that journeys down to Malkut, to our experience in this world. And so there are a lot of different ways we can examine these cards, but let's start by talking about the Hermit card and this particular depiction of it as Russian nesting dolls, or matryoshka, and pardon the pronunciation for those of you that speak Russian. These dolls are very powerful. If you are in North America, there is a children's picture book called The Littlest Matryoshka, and it's a really beautiful story. And I know there are a few children's books about these nesting dolls. And one of the things that always disturbed me about these dolls was the squeaking noise, the crying almost. And I feel that in the energy of these dolls, there is something much more powerful than appears on the surface. And here, perhaps, Frida is the littlest matryoshka, found at the center, at the heart of these dolls, and she is the baby. And that's a really powerful thing to say in terms of the Frida Kahlo story, who you may well be aware was not able to bring a child to full term, had probably several miscarriages in her lifetime, and that was one of her greatest regrets. Due to, and I say due to because there's probably all kinds of unseen karmas and energies, but she was impaled in a horrific public transit accident when she was a young woman, and her sacral chakra was destroyed. And so this is very much a deck of healing, the sacral chakra. So here is this littlest doll as Frida herself, with the star at the center of these layers. And I think this is such a potent card as a hermit card, this metaphor for the journey of the hermit as one of connecting to the inner layers of self. And I find that the hermit card is, it's funny, between teaching tarot classes and doing various series on my channel, there are always connections. And I think I'm coming back to the hermit today because there is still something to discover here. I'm looking at the dogs and the other nesting dolls, and I'm thinking that they are protective layers. And I've been on doing quite a few live streams today, and I've been thinking, spoke about the tower earlier today, and how the walls of the tower are, for a time being, absolutely necessary protective layers that we build while we gain strength, knowledge, live life. But eventually, those layers will need to be peeled away so we can carry on our journey. If we look at this in connection with the Virgo story in the tarot, we have 8, 9, and 10 of Pentacles here. So this is the mutable earth suit. Things are changing. And so the energy of a moving hermit, and also note that in most hermit cards, we don't actually see a flow of the robe of the hermit. You don't actually see a step of the hermit. The hermit is still. The hermit is slow. The hermit is journeying within, maybe deep into a metaphorical cave that we are ready to explore. There is always a light or a lantern, and this is held up so that illuminates the darkness. And perhaps it gives us a bit of courage as it dispels the darkness. And while the darkness is still there, it illuminates a part of it that we are ready indeed to see. And so I'm not taking questions, Minroy. Sorry. Mrin Moy. Yeah. So let's look at some of these other details around, and I'll see if I can describe this. I'm going to read a little bit from the guidebook today, and let's see if that can give us any more details as to the symbols are light, moons, mountains, roses, Russian dolls, and stars. So it's interesting. I guess it's mountains. It almost looks as if there's the wheat of the Empress that is around on the sides of those the green bits on the side. Hide your light only for a minute. Avatara is in the dark and won't let you in it. deeper, darker, and further away than ever today. Under the skin, beneath the layers, strip back the onion to find the prize. Leave me alone, world. I neither need you nor care for you. I hide in plain sight right here on your mantle, but you won't see me. I am just part of the furniture. I need time just for me today. Give me time to find my light again, a spark for my consciousness, a gleam for my happiness, a shard to carry back to you. Time, my love. I just need a little to recoup and to heal, well enough to recover my sight and rekindle my vision, to hold the bright seed close to my heart, a warm, fertile place of germination. Be patient with me, the silent cry of the damaged introvert. You will find me if you search beneath the layers of the onion, but better to wait and leave me in the dark till my urge for light will shoot forth and I can once again take my place in us. This is very, very poetic. And as I'm looking in my computer screen at these cards, I can see this ray of light perfectly aligned with an arm in the sun card. And as she describes herself resting in her damaged heart, in the sun card lay the unborn children or the future children in the optimism and light and protection of the beating heart in that 19th arcanum. She is her children. Her children are her, and they both live within her heart. And I think these connections in this deck are so very, very powerful. And I was pausing and reflecting before I came on, and this reminded me of something. Oh, yes, I remember. So many years ago, it may have been the first public mediumship gathering I was at. And there was an evidential medium who was there, and it was a large group that was gathered. It was for a weekend retreat, and I had just gone for the evening event. And somebody was taking notes for me when the medium addressed me. But the gist of it was that she saw many, many children gathered around me, and talked about all of these children. And when I read this Diary of the Avatara entry earlier, I thought how poignant that is. And of all of the parents who have had stillbirths or lost children at a young age, or had repetitive miscarriages, or simply not been able to conceive, that still they are surrounded by the spirit of children. And how could that be brought into the interpretation of this card as a healing message, or this combination of cards as a healing message? I said this deck was a Swadhisthana, not Swadhisthana. I said sacral chakra, Swadhisthana chakra deck. And this brings in a question of connection between the children kept in the safety of the heart, and yet it looks like a womb, right? This is a deck of wombs. The Hermit looks like a womb. And so we have this layer of heart as womb. And it's like this frequency has been elevated from the sacral chakra to the Anahat heart chakra. It's really beautiful. And then in the Hermit card, there is a light beam that kind of shoots across and almost touches the golden yellow flowers on the right side of the moon card. And here, Avatara rests in all her beauty. Her hair is long. She looks healthy and fit, and she has consumed Mexican tarragon, which I believe creates a sense of euphoria of some kind. I didn't have time to look up that plant. Well, I looked it up, but couldn't find anything fast enough. And there are quite a few hallucinogenics, different herbs and things that are consumed besides the peyote cactus. That's one that also comes to mind. So Frida, throughout her lifetime, is consuming various plants, pharmaceuticals, alcohol, sex, to navigate the pain that she lives. And on those journeys and in those hallucinations, she writes in her diary, she shares some incredible insights and is able to perhaps paint some of her most memorable paintings. And that also, I want to say, when she's in her greatest pain, I think some of that came through as well too. And so what is different about this particular moon card from another? Well, the path here is blocked. So if you're aware of a Waite-Smith moon card, there is a path and you can see a clear pathway through. But in this particular card, isn't it funny? It's her pelvis that blocks the pathway through. And it almost looks, I don't know, maybe I read too much into this. She had, Clevis, in this card, it said she had Mexican tarragon. And I don't know what sort of an effect that has. It said she ingested some herbs. So it doesn't really matter what she had, but she's in a state. She's in a dream state, and she's processing her life. Welcome to you, by the way. And hello, Aria. Yes, I think that's a beautiful description. Painfully moving and complex cards. So I want to go back to the idea of 9. And in the last episode, I was talking about that 9th Sephira and how the 9th Sephira hangs over Malkut, hangs over the 10th Sephira. The reflections, the energy of the full moon, the lunacy, the fluctuations of the moon. And 9, I feel like in the energy of 9, there's a reluctancy to fast forward to the 10. Now, these are major arcana 9s, but in the last episode, we were looking at these minor 9s, and many of you will be familiar with the 9s in the Waite-Smith Tarot or other Waite-Smith inspired decks, where there's one person and there is a level of reflection in all of the 9s. Nobody's going anywhere. It's just like we're taking recounting our life, maybe counting blessings, seeing our life flash before our eyes. I don't know what we're doing. We're journaling, we're reflecting. And that fits so beautifully if you look at the position of that 9th Sephira and where it is. Behind its back, right? Behind its back is the sun. So if you look at all of these cards as the 9th Sephira, then we have the 6th Sephira overhead that shines down through the 9th Sephira. And then down below we have the world, or Malkut, the path of the world, and then Malkut. So I think there's something about these nines that wants us to fully embrace the lunar energy. And that is going to mean something different for you, depending on what your question is and the nature of the reading and so forth. But this deck is very, very potent in getting into that. So, if I want to just look at the Tree of Life for a second and a couple of other things here. All right. So let's get the Hermit on the screen as well too. Here is the Hermit. So the path of the Hermit takes us from Chesed, Jupiter, to Tipheret, the sun. And there is a loving kindness, expansive sort of energy at Chesed. The Hermit holds up this light and moves towards the light. It's like there is this almost like a magnetic energy, perhaps like a moth to a, what a terrible, I don't even know if I want to say that, like a moth to a light. We all know what happens when a moth touches a light. So we must be careful, right? Not to be burned, not to look directly at the sun, but to be in its radiance. So, this story of the tarot has so many, the mandala is beautiful, and the connections are so deep and interconnected. The more one is aware of these layers. And perhaps the promise of the courage to peel away the layers, to go in, is that eventually we will arrive for a time at Tipheret and be able to find some peace and comfort. So I think that's very encouraging, because I know that when the Hermit card comes up in a reading, often querents are a little hesitant about that. I mean, a lot of people are afraid to be alone, afraid to go within. But if that light is leading us to the beauty and the peace and the harmony of that central pillar Sephira, then that certainly is a comfort. The entire plant has been used. Okay, so we're talking about the tarragon that is mentioned in the moon card, Mexican tarragon, and Frida has ingested some of this plant. And Clevis just looked this up. It's been used for stomach aches, nausea, and colic. It's also been taken for colds and fevers. The plant, also known as pericon, I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing that right, was also an important medicine in ancient Mexico. Okay, so in Diary of an Avatara, it says, "Tonight I cooked and ingested a herb. My flesh fell away, and I found myself again by the water. Before long I am whole again and worthy of material being, while I am body, spirit, and potential. I rest on the shore, moon bathing beneath the vast lunar orb." So there is some suggestion that this plant has relaxed her and caused some sort of ability to let go of her pain. Yeah, thanks for that, Clevis. So what am I saying here? I'm saying that the paths, the Sephira, the numbers, there is, looking at any one of these things in isolation never gives us enough information. And so my method in unpacking the tarot is to build in all of these layers. And it is so rewarding once you get familiar with. Now, you don't need to do a deep study of the Kabbalah, nor do you need years and years of astrological study. It's simply about, what is it about? It's about just opening your mind, awake, perhaps taking the little white book and just doing this and saying, okay, let's widen this perspective. Let's widen this mandala. So on the tree of life, the sun is on a path that, a short path also, that goes to the moon. And the sun and the moon, and the reason I'm focusing on the tree of life here in this deck is because it was, Gabi was, the creator of this deck, the artist, was very intentional that, and it's so beautiful, Lady Frieda Harris was painting this tarot deck with Aleister, along with Aleister Crowley, at about the same time that Frida Kahlo was painting. So energetically on this planet, these two Fridas had some kind of connection. And I think that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, there are very few Crowley, I would say, if I had to put a number, 30% or less, maybe 20%, the correspondences. Like if you line up all of the Crowley cards and this deck, it's very much Waite-Smith inspired, yet its intention is through the artwork of Lady Frieda Harris. And so I've been building in and trying to tap into more Golden Dawn energy in studying this deck. Yeah. So the path of the sun, as I was saying, goes from 8 to 9. And the sun, that's the sun card, the 19th arcanum. And the planet, the sun, shines down directly above on the middle pillar at the minor nines. So this is a super powerful group of cards. And I would suggest that if the Hermit appears in a reading, you want to pay attention to moon-sun connections. How it appears through minor nines, or perhaps other cards with decanic correspondences to moon or to sun. And if I look at the Hermit cards, Virgo, we don't have a moon decan. We have the first decan of Virgo is the sun. That goes Sun, Venus, Mercury. So yeah, so those are just a few thoughts on building these connections here. And for those of you that have been following along in the series the whole way, I want to thank you. I'm going to start to wrap things up. I do need to sort of wind up the 10s. And in the journal, I have completed all of the major arcana pages. I'll make sure those are available in the Google Drive. And then I'm going to quickly blast through the court cards before we start some readings. And I want to do a couple of episodes where we do some readings and maybe some public readings as well too with these cards, so we can really tap into all that we have learned over the past 20-something weeks with this deck, because it's absolutely, it's brilliant. Yeah, and very, very healing. For those of you that are watching the replay and catching this because it happens to be a public episode today, I would appreciate your feedback if you have been working with this deck or what your takeaway is on this deck. And if you have any questions about the deep dive or anything I've shared with you today, please let me know. Okay? Thank you so much for being here, and enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste.